Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and today we have one of our state reps, Mr. Mark Sharp, and he's going to give you the rundown of what's been happening since he got sworn in. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Mr. Nelson. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Mark, when did you get sworn in?
We were sworn in about a couple weeks ago down here in Jeff City.
All right. Tell our audience, I think it was the 6th, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was yes, January 6th. That's right.
All right. So tell our audience what you've been up to and give them a snapshot of your day.
Okay. Well, ever since we got sworn in on January 6th, our responsibility as state reps are to file bills that will help our district and help the state. So I have done that. Most reps have already filed all their bills for the session, but you can file bills the entire session. But I filed all the bills I'm going to file for this session because there's no point in filing more until we get the first ones passed. Other than that, my day consists of going to my committees that I'm on. I'm on the General Laws Committee, the Committee on Crime Prevention, and the Committee on Education and Secondary Education. Or elementary and secondary education. So those committees take up a lot of my time, and we hear a lot of interesting bills that come through education and gen laws, especially
give
with
them
the Republican leadership.
Excuse me for cutting you off. You know I'm the cutoff king, but give our audience a snapshot of what kind of bills and what's coming in front of you on that educational scene.
Well, this has been our first full week in committee. So we've seen some crazy bills so far. Just yesterday, we heard 2 bills that would stop law enforcement agencies in the state of Missouri from enforcing federal gun laws. And I know that Missouri is made up of a lot of rural counties and rural representatives, but in a year where we've had homicides breaking records in both St. Louis and Kansas City, and we're trying to loosen our gun laws even more to the fact that we don't even enforce federal gun laws here in Missouri, it was absurd, and hopefully it doesn't get passed here in the House. But that's just one example of a bill that we have to do.
Keep it moving then. Keep it moving.
So
the other committee.
So the other committees for education, we've heard a few bills so far, but nothing that we voted on quite yet. We're still trying to fix some of the bills. A lot of the language in some of these bills is so bad that we get caught up and hung up in committee for hours on end trying to make small changes and adopt amendments and having back conversations and side conversations and trying to do all this wheeling and dealing to get the right language on the bill. Because once it comes out of committee, the language that's on there is going to be the language that's probably going to be on there, unless for some god awful reason we're able to get an amendment on the floor, which hardly ever happens. So you have to get the changes done in committee, otherwise they probably won't get done at all. So that's what our day is like for the most part.
So let's switch gears. What's happening with the C-19 as it relates to the state?
Well, as it relates to the state, Governor Parson has several tiers that he's letting the vaccines out in. So the first tier is done, and he's almost done with it's 1A and 1B. That's the first tier. 1B is almost finished with. Just today, we were announced that state employees can now get the vaccine too. So a lot of folks this week are going to the hotel down the street to get the vaccine. So after that will be the third phase, which will be everybody else and just normal citizens and Missourians here in the state. So right now I'm working with different pastors and different places where I can try to help have the vaccines administered, because a lot of folks in South Kansas City, especially in the African-American community, have been devastated by COVID-19.
All right. Is there any other thing that you want to talk about as it relates to politics? We've talked about some sports things. And as I said to my audience, we're not going to be going through our hour-long interviews in the future. Keep it short and sweet. But we talked about South Suburban.
There's one thing I do want to mention.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me talk about one more thing in Jeff City, then I'm going to move on to South Suburban. There was supposed to be a state of the state address today by the governor. Well, that means that everybody, Senate, the Supreme Court judges here in Missouri, and all the state reps are supposed to be crowded into the chamber to listen to the Secretary of State and to listen to the governor and all these dignitaries here in Missouri. But the event has been canceled, thank God. So we can avoid another super spreader event. Not that I don't want to hear what the governor has to say, but there's no need for us all to be crammed into a room.
What's wrong with the Republicans up there? They think they
well they fixed it. This was their decision to cancel the state of the state. So they're coming around.
Oh,
I mean,
some
slowly,
people waking up
but they're
down
coming
there.
around.
Oh, all right.
I think some folks might be waking up. I think they're waking up a little bit. But so
right.
that's something I wanted to mention. I know that was slated for today, but South Suburban basketball and South Suburban sports. Now we had talked a little bit earlier, Carlos. Now, are we going to be doing South Suburban basketball? Or are we going to be bringing it all back? Because when I grew up, you had the big three.
I have the Corporation for South Suburban Basketball, and just like with Cascade Media and Cascade Sports and all the things we do, we're taking one step at a time. I've had a plan for South Suburban for the last 5 years that was going to include tutoring and health and wellness, a mental health component. Because my kids played and you played in South Suburban, sports have changed. Our society has changed. And I think through sports, you learn a lot of things, but in our zip codes, the kids that are playing, they could use a little more encouragement on financial literacy, on and our parents, the day-to-day pressure of a lot of single family mothers and dads that participate in sports, bringing their kids and what have you, feel pressure, and having a component that deals with mental health with the kids and with the adults. And the league will be from kindergarten to 8th grade and a participatory league. And we're hoping that especially under the Biden administration, that there will be a trickle-down effect from all sectors of life, that this next generation that we raise we can instill some of the things that sports brings out in our community and in our country. I want to raise the next generation of leaders. You played South Suburban. Talk to them about your experience.
Well, I played South Suburban from the time I was 5, starting with t-ball and baseball. I never forget the Overland Park Express was the name of the team. And I played at Clark Ketterman Fields right there off 107th Street behind my dad's old house. I would often either ride my bike or walk to the baseball fields. And that's where it started, right there at 5 years old. And I stopped playing when I got to 8th grade. By the time I was at Irvin, I was playing football, basketball, and then I played. They didn't have baseball at Irvin, so I played baseball my last year in 8th grade at Clark Ketterman with South Suburban before moving up to a different league in the Van Johnson and different stuff like that. But if it were not for South Suburban, I wouldn't have played baseball. I wouldn't have played basketball. I wouldn't have played football. If it weren't for South Suburban, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to play these three. I came from a middle class household, but we didn't have the kind of dough to be playing travel baseball or travel basketball or travel football. And the South Suburban made it real easy. And it made it real easy for a lot of guys I grew up with. And a lot of girls, too. You got to remember, in elementary school, there were girls that played on the basketball teams, but it was a co-ed team. So that was real special. And to not have that, South Kansas City and really Kansas City overall is missing a huge piece to development. And what I would like to see, hopefully, as we get further in this process, that when teams are meeting to practice, that they're not just practicing all the time. Maybe one of those nights they have a homework night, or one of those nights they have a study night. But I think when you have that kind of involvement and you have other areas in that kind of team environment, it makes folks buy into it. And you want to have children and kids and families to come out of their communities, come out from their communities and support these things and to buy into it. And I think one of the reasons why South Kansas City has been on the decline lately, especially with homicides and violent crimes, is because things like this aren't around anymore. When you're growing up and you got something you don't want to miss and something you're looking forward to, it makes you act right a little more. So that's something that we need to get
That's
back,
right.
and I look forward to working with you to make sure that happens.
And cutting you off, I'm the cutoff king.
Nobody wants to be on the bench.
Yeah, and if you have really good coaches, it's like, what are you doing in school? Everybody's bringing their grades. You don't have your good grades. You might not even be on the team. Sure. Your mom's telling me.
And I would make the suggestion that language be in the bylaws whenever the board comes together, because that should be something that's required of every coach on every team in the league. I think that's my personal opinion.
Hold it. Let me tell you this. That's what Cascade Sports is known as, home of the student athlete. That's the whole thing. So, hey, Rep, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Do you have any closing words?
They wouldn't be as good as yours, but it's always a pleasure being on here, and I look forward to being on here again soon.
As we close, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.